Project from the get-go, from the minute that we announced we were going to preserve this property, we have had outstanding, extraordinary public input and participation from the 300 people who applied to be on the advisory council to the thousands of people who filled out the survey. It's really clear to us on council that people in Delaware County are keenly aware of the value of open space in face of the traffic and the overdevelopment and the flooding that we see from so much pavement. And this is going to be a really exciting opportunity for us to preserve the open space, preserve a forest, and also create a destination park to attract all sorts of visitors and residents in the region. So I'm so thrilled for you to see what our Citizens Advisory Committee and our consultants have come up with thus far. And I am going to go ahead and introduce to you our Director of Planning, Gina Burrett.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Safer, and good evening to everyone who has come out tonight to join us either in person, and we also do have a large contingent of people who are joining us virtually, so thank you to those as well. This master plan process has been built on a foundation of public input and engagement, and we're excited to share the next step in that process with you tonight, which are the design concepts, and hear your feedback on those concepts. To start off, I would like to thank County Council for their leadership and vision in conserving this property for open space, as well as to all of the county residents who worked hard for many years to protect the site. Delaware County's new 213-acre park represents a pivotal opportunity to conserve one of the largest forests in the region and transform it into a unique public space for all county residents and visitors to enjoy. This space will be a welcoming environment where all members of our community can come together to play, learn, relax, explore, and spend time together. Making this park publicly accessible addresses larger goals for our county's long-term livability and sustainability. Centrally located in the county, the new park will weave together conservation and recreation with facilities that are contemporary, inclusive, comfortable, clean, accessible, and welcoming to all. Today, you'll see the site analysis, the proposed master plan design, and have a chance to make comments or ask questions. We ask that you all listen carefully to one another and be respectful. There are several ways to provide feedback. For those here in the room, you'll have a chance to provide written comments on the scorecards that were handed out to you. And then if you would like to provide a verbal comment after the presentation, you'll be able to do so. You'll have 3 minutes to present after the presentation. If you are presenting on behalf of an organization, we'll have 5 minutes. We just ask that you let us know what organization you're presenting on behalf of, have your other people who are here in attendance raise their hands, and then you'll be given 5 minutes for those remarks. For those attending virtually, please email, and you don't have to remember this, it is on the YouTube page, but please email Delco New Park Plan at co.delaware.pa.us with any comments that you might have, and those comments are being monitored. Additionally, a second survey, we already did one survey earlier in the process, we'll do a second survey that'll go live in a few weeks. That'll ask about input based on the park design you're going to see tonight. And we're going to learn, and also from some of the comments that you provide tonight as well, we'll go into that survey so you can have another way of providing feedback via that. So be on the lookout for that survey link in the coming days. With any undertaking this large, it is a team effort, and there are many people involved in this work. I'd first like to introduce some of the team that's making it happen. We will never be at this point without County Council, and tonight with us, we have, as you heard earlier, Vice Chair Elaine Schaefer, as well as Councilwoman Ruther. Our Park and Rec Director, Mark Manfrey, and his team are also here, as well as our Commerce Director, Laura Goodrich-Kearns. And then also Adrienne Morosky and her team in PR helped us get all of this together. I'd also like to thank my staff in the planning department, as well as Sean Rush, who is our AV manager. And also there are countless other employees who have assisted in this process. I'd also like to thank our design team led by Ann Toole from Toole Recreation Planning, Andy Mears from JMT, and Ann Hutchinson and Kelsey Boyd from Natural Lands for all their hard work, as well as Jim Hartling from Urban Partners, who isn't with us tonight. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to give a big thank you to our advisory committee made up of county residents who have been working tirelessly with us throughout this entire process, providing invaluable insight and feedback as we have moved through the master plan process. I'd now like to turn, and actually I can show you. Showing it's not, okay, there we go. Nope, nope. Yeah, there we go. Our advisory committee, who've been very helpful. And I'd now like to turn it over to one of our advisory committee members, Ladiana Tab, to talk a little bit more about the public engagement process that has occurred so far. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Latiana Tab. So I am one of the members of the advisory committee. It's been really meaningful, and I'm just going to talk about what that experience has been like. It's been really meaningful to be a part of this process where we felt like that our voice was heard and like really, really valued. The process has been a really intense, has had an intense engagement and reflection to try to reach people from all over the county. And you've heard people talk about the engagement several times. There's been a survey where over 3,000 people have responded to the survey, pop-up events to gather feedback, focus groups, and a public meeting at O'Hara. There has been special emphasis on the fact that although the park may feel local to some, like this is a park that is for everyone in the county. And I feel like that is like one of the most important messages that we all have shared throughout this engagement process. On the committee, the county's diversity, as we can see from all these beautiful pictures, was represented on the committee, but not just with the diversity of how we look or our day-to-day experiences, but there was so much diversity of thought represented on the committee. And we listen to each other, and we're hopeful that today this is another opportunity for us to listen to other residents of the county so we can have more diversity of thought and gather feedback from what this process has been. So as I mentioned, this has been a really welcoming experience for us on the committee, and we're confident that from all of our input and input from residents throughout the county over the last few months, that today you will see a very welcoming park for all. So next, I'm going to invite up Kelsey Boyd from Natural Lands, and she is going to discuss the site analysis.
Hi, everyone. So I am Kelsey Boyd with Natural Lands. I'm the Stewardship Planning Program Manager. And my role in this project has been to look at the natural resources of the park and see how the county can keep improving them and care for them into the future. So I'm going to walk you through one piece of that, which is the site assessment. And that looked at multiple factors for the natural resources to see what's really there and what are the most environmentally important and sensitive parts of the park to really focus in on and make sure that are preserved and cared for. Let's see. I'm just going to skip ahead to, so this map shows an aerial of the park, and you can see that it really is primarily natural areas. It's mostly forested. It's about 170 acres within the park of forested property, plus a little bit of wetlands and grasslands. So that's what I'm going to be focusing in on. This map shows Delaware County and all of the forested properties over 1 acre in the darker green color. The lighter green color is properties over 1 acre that are other types of natural vegetation, such as wetlands or shrublands. And then the blue outline is Darby Creek watershed, of which this property is a part of. And just looking at this map, you can see how much this property stands out within the Darby Creek watershed. It's by far the largest property left in the last half to 2/3 of this watershed, which shows how critical it is to protect for flooding downstream, for water quality, and how critical it was for the county to preserve this property. We also looked then more at the individual property level for the site assessment, and that included doing multiple site visits to understand what are the current conditions on the ground, what vegetation is there, and to identify different plant communities to help with the management. So each of these areas represents a plant community which vary based on what type of cover it is. So if it's forest, if it's wetland, grassland, and what the types of species are within it, so that we can then prioritize those areas based on their health and sensitivity. So starting with the light green area in the middle here labeled with a 1, this is an older mature forest that's been intact since at least 1937. So it has good health to it. There's not many invasive plants, and invasive plants are exotic plants that have been introduced to the area either intentionally, unintentionally, that outcompete our native plants because they're so aggressive. And the problem with those plants are they're poor quality habitat for wildlife. They don't provide the same food benefits. So we really want to focus in on making sure that we have our native plants. So that's what this area represents here. The brighter green here are younger forests, those areas that were cleared previously for agriculture. So the forests are still fairly healthy, but they're not quite as healthy as the older forests that weren't cut down previously. There's a lot more invasive plants, specifically along all the roadways and the edges with where the Donguanella buildings are. So those areas are heavily impacted. They're not as good quality, but as you move in, things improve and it gets better. Not to say that these areas aren't important, just that they're not as ecologically healthy. The blue area down at the bottom is another forested area that's just predominantly red maples. So it's a little bit different, but again, a younger forest area that's still important. So we prioritize that as a number 2 level. So 1 is highest, 2 is kind of medium high. Oh, and then if you look on the top northwest corner, you'll see a purple area. That's a wetland that stretches along the stream, which is really important for water quality and for amphibian habitat. So we also prioritize that highly when we did our assessment. Looking at some of the lower quality areas, that bright orange in the middle is an old sanitary landfill that's now more of a grassland. So it's been cleared, heavily degraded over time. So it's not as good quality condition. And then the number 4 is a shrubby area that's had past dumping on it. There's like a lot of large concrete boulders. So it's not good quality habitat as it stands. Not to say that these areas can't be improved, but that's where things stand now. We also looked at where the steep slopes are. So all the red and orange areas are steep slopes, and those areas are not compatible with building. They're areas that soils are sensitive and subjected to erosion if they're cleared. So we made sure to call those out as critical areas. We also looked at the quality of the streams from a high level standpoint. So we know that there's Wet Run Creek, Whetstone Run, and 2 tributaries that flow through Donguanella. And they're all in fairly good condition. There's some stream bank erosion, but they're really critical for downstream drinking water, for habitat, for the recreation opportunities they provide, just experiencing them when people go out into nature. So we know that these areas are important, and not only the streams themselves, but 150 feet on each side is what's considered a riparian buffer. It's important to keep those forests intact to protect the water quality from anything flowing onto the property. So the streams in the 150-foot buffer we considered very important. We also considered how the property functions as a whole and what benefits it provides. This includes flood management. So all of the development around the area is, sending a lot of stormwater to this property, and all the vegetation helps slow that down, helps infiltrate into the ground and filter out pollutants. So it's really critical to keep that in mind. Also, the vegetation is important for air quality, filtering the air, helping with water quality, keeping the stream shaded and cool. Just the intrinsic value of the scenic views for this area, especially with all the sprawl that's kind of surrounding it, is important to consider. Recreational benefits, mental and physical health, and then climate resiliency, how this property can really function because it's so large to help lower temperatures in the area, keep the water clear, help with flood management. And then one of the last pieces we considered was habitat. So this property, because it's so large and the forests are so intact, actually has what's considered interior forest. And that's forest areas that are more than 300 feet from a disturbance. So there's no roads cutting through it. There's no buildings in the middle of it. And this is critical for certain species, especially birds, who need this type of area to be protected from predators to raise their young. So this interior forest is really important. There's also a lot of diversity of habitat. There's wetlands, there's grasslands, there's forests of different ages. So all these provide different niches for wildlife and benefits to them. So having that mix is also great to see on the property. Some of the things we found were that bats were identified as a sensitive species. So making sure to keep large trees, for instance, is important for roosting. So those things are of note. There's also have been 80 different bird species identified by birders coming out to this property and recording what they find through eBird. And these birds have, a mix of needs from interior forests to shrubby areas to wetlands. So it's important, again, to know what's there and how they're using the property. So from there, we built out a site assessment, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to skip through these and explain it as a whole. So the darkest green areas are the most important areas. They are the most ecologically beneficial and sensitive. So those are the wetlands and then that 150-foot riparian buffer. So we are terming that a minimal activity zone when you think about what can be done in the different areas. This is where you want the least use for the property because it's so important for protecting those waterways, for protecting the wetland. A step down from that is what we call the low activity zone, and that's that bright, vibrant green. So those areas align with that older, mature forest that's been intact since at least 1937, and the steep slopes, because again, those are important areas to protect as well. So they can sustain a little bit more use than the minimal activity area, but you don't want to go, crazy putting in pavilions in this space, or, a lot of active recreation within there. It's more of an area that you want to keep protecting the natural resources. The light green area is the medium activity zones. These areas are still important environmentally, but they have, slightly less environmental importance compared to the other areas. They're already a little bit degraded. And as I said, especially along the roads and along that building area. So they're more appropriate for more trails, maybe some a little bit more of an active use for these areas. Again, keeping in mind, though, that we want to try and keep as much of the forest as possible, be conscientious of what's being done so we can keep the overall benefits for this property. And then the high activity areas are the areas that were already developed. It's the softball field, the building areas, and then the landfill area and that shrubland that's already been fairly heavily degraded prior to the county taking it over. So this site analysis helps provide a basis for the master plan that Andy is going to be talking about shortly. So you'll see how this kind of fed into that. And then the second piece that we've been looking at in terms of the natural resources specifically is how the park can be stewarded now going forward. So looking at how can the county sustain the plant communities and make sure that they're resilient. And that really requires active management. Due to a lot of stressors like deer, like invasive plants, you can't actually just let the natural areas be by themselves. They really require a lot of help to be sustainable into the future, to be as healthy and beneficial as they possibly can be. So this plan will look into different options for restoration and ongoing management and cover a range of topics such as forest improvements, habitat, water quality and wetland protection, even meadow creation and invasive plant control. So these are just some of the topics that we'll cover. We'll cover more and there'll be more detailed recommendations. But this just gives a little bit of an overview. So thank you. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Eric.
Thank you, Kelsey. I'm here to tell a story about the idea for the park. You've seen a lot of interesting and complicated and very important information that Kelsey presented. And you're going to see more information that Andy will present about the specifics of the park and also the feedback that we've gotten from you. So just close your eyes for a minute and think about the simplicity of the park. We all want this park to be the best it can be. Really successful and well-planned parks that people love and can be pretty complicated. So we look for a way to simplify and create a big idea for the park. Based on all the team's research and all your feedback, the team needed a simple theme, an idea that was big enough to bring together all these different moving parts into a plan that works well, looks great, and is inspiring. The big idea for the park's theme, which you've seen here, is community in nature. This means that the park, like all the best parks, will connect people with people and people with nature. The proposed plan allows for many different uses and for lots of people with wide-ranging interests to enjoy the place. There are also many nature preservation and restoration actions to keep what is good and improve the damaged areas. What you see in the diagram is the simplified shape of the park. In the park are two hands reaching out, the hand of nature and the hand of people. This is on purpose. We see the park as a kind of handshake with people helping nature and nature helping people. Now, community in nature is a complex topic, and we're going to show you how the concept unites, connects, welcomes, preserves, explores, and creates the park. Community in nature unites. The park will have two hearts. The green heart is the forests and streams, which is what everyone loves about the site. That is the nature heart, which will be preserved and restored. The orange heart is the area of the existing Don Guanella campus, which will be transformed into an exciting place that will be full of fun park activities. That is the community heart. But we have ideas that go beyond that. We're looking at the way that nature can extend into community, and we see that the community heart is part of nature, and nature is part of the community. Community and nature connects. The plan for the park works hard to make it easy so that you can enjoy it whether you come a few times or get to it every day. The park will easily be accessible to people of all abilities, including those who can walk, bike, drive, and take a bus. For those who live nearby, there will be safe routes to walk and bike to the park. For those who live farther away and can drive, there will be increased SEPTA bus service and ample parking. Community and nature welcomes. However you get to the park, from wherever you live, 6 gateways will welcome you. Like the doors of our houses, these are the places where you know you have arrived and you are welcome, here at the park. The edge of the park will be designed to be attractive and visible from the surrounding streets so that people can see the park as a place of pride. Community and nature preserves. We have responded to your overwhelming desire to keep the park's natural beauty and ecological value intact. The plan preserves almost 90% of the forest and stream corridors, as Kelsey has shown us. The core of the park is undeveloped except for trails. The edges and the places where the health of the landscape has been damaged will be restored. The community core will be designed with many eco-friendly design features that reduce the impact of the active park development. Community and nature explores. Miles of improved trails that will allow for biking, hiking, walking, running, and nature watching will extend through the park. A comprehensive system of sensitively planned and built routes will allow experiences for every type of ability and interest. And last, community and nature creates. The Delaware, the community heart will be a vibrant, fun, and beautiful space for all of Delco. A central commons to relax, gather, play, picnic, celebrate, and maybe even get married. The existing school campus will be transformed into the heart of Delco's diverse community. Over 50 features and activities will bring together people of all ages, abilities, cultures, and interests. So that's sort of the big overview of community and nature, the guiding concept for a park that County Council has said will be for all Delco residents. Now you've seen the overview, and Andy will take us for a tour of the park that will show us how it works and what it will look like.
Thank you, Eric. I had the easy job of putting this all together. And that was a lot that you guys heard. That was a lot. But if you want more, there's more to the site analysis, and there's actually a recording on the website. I think Kelsey and I talked for almost an hour. So there's a lot more on the natural resource protection that really helps you to further understand how the design was shaped. Kelsey focused on the natural resources aspect, but there's utilities, the buildings, the other things that were there. So we get into a little bit more of the infrastructure, and it all works to guide. But I want to talk more about the design now. But before I get into that, you heard the primary, objective here. We've heard it from everybody. Latiana talked about all the different things we did to get community engagement, and you heard the common theme of conservation of the forest. The forest is the essence of this place. As designers, we're always searching, and it doesn't always happen. You can't make every park the greatest park in the world, because they don't all have an essence of a place. Designers are always trying to create that. You have it without doing anything. The forest is what makes this place. It's what this design is built around. It's what's special here. It's what's being celebrated, and it's what's going to make people come here. So that's what we really tried to achieve with the design. And again, all based on that public participation process. Now, the facilities that we did propose, we proposed those to be developed in a sustainable manner where they're intertwined into the design. And I'll show you a couple of examples what I mean by intertwined, because I'm going to talk about the plan from the edges to the forest to the core area that we're recommending for the developed facilities. And then there's these transitional spaces that is the bridge between the forest and the developed areas. But this is a summary of the program of facilities, and you could see overwhelmingly the nature aspect, 22% compared to everything else. And my assistant is, what did you call him? Raul. So today he's Raul. Wherever I go, whatever presentation he's gonna have, he may be Diego in another presentation, but tonight he's Raul because Sean gave him the name when I got here and was practicing. So he's gonna help us really just see the experience as we go through the design. So this is the overall design. You know, we're really fortunate in this area to have areas of nature preserves, lots of different parks. And this certainly, as I said, you know, could be a hallmark and will become a hallmark of the area and really be representative of what this area is about. As I said, I'm going to talk about the edges. I want to make sure I hit all of the facilities, and then I'm going to get into some of the details. As you can see, number one, and really, I'm starting from the outside, working down the right, and then by the high school, and come back up through the forest and then to the core area. This is the core area, and these are the edges, and the high school is right here, just to give everybody, get everyone situated. So number one, we're looking at making sure we have connections to the neighborhood. We know a lot of the kids already bike here, the ones that use it. So we want to have safe connections to the site. We have a parking area that was just bid and will be developed shortly of about roughly 20 so spaces. That's underway to really open the park up now. The county has already been very proactive in getting that going. As we move into areas 3, 4, and 5, the wetland areas here, it's somewhat open, but there's some remnants of some of the historical activities that have happened there that are associated with Whetstone Run. So we want to celebrate that area with, you know, a walking boardwalk, interpretation, educational exhibits of the historical area there for cultural education. We're looking at protected bike lanes and different types of trails. Along the front of the park would be a shared use trail, and I'll show the difference in a second. We're looking at within the wooded areas, stream bank restoration. Kelsey pointed out some of those degrading streams, so we're looking making those recommendations. Connections beyond the park to the other parks, the Darby Creek connections. Obviously, we talked a lot about preserving the existing forests, which is number 9 in the middle area here. Native grass meadows along the front, shared use paths along the front. We have a park maintenance building down here, and we have a small dog park area or dog run. The highlight of the park, which again I'll show you, is this generational pavilion. I'll talk about what that means a little later. And the transitional spaces are these small little circles. Each one of those have a different use, and I'll go into that a little bit later as well when I go into the details. So we have different spaces within those. Some will be for adventure and exploration. Some will be for relaxation, contemplation, exercise, fitness. And those are those transitional spaces. They'll be designed to work with the forest and transition into the forest. And obviously, in the center area, the primary core area, this was the area that was the former school site. That's roughly 30 acres. And the area that we've shown, this is the Park Drive, and the area within there is roughly 30 acres. So we wanted to stay within the same development footprint, so we're not encroaching in any areas that we didn't need to, and try to make the recreation amenities fit within that area. So that really is how the concept was built and how we ended up with this shape. I'll talk a little bit about the other areas around there, but essentially we have different areas trying to make sure we're very inclusive in the design. There's a teen area, there's a senior area with different facilities geared towards those groups, the skate park, BMX. We also have community building there, and also 2 different restroom areas, because we know how important the restrooms are, especially as you get older like me. So I'm gonna jump, well, I want to give you guys a sense of scale. So, this is 213 acres, but within the middle area here, this green area here is the community space. That's roughly 3 acres, just so you have a sense of how things relate size-wise. So as I talked about going from the edges in, we're looking at protected bike lanes. And then on the front, we're looking at shared use paths. So what's the difference? The protected bike lanes on the top would be on road, and along the front would be shared use paths, as you can see an image there. Around the exterior, we're looking at incorporating some perimeter meadows, some showy meadows and grass meadows there. You could see along the front, that light green hatch, and then some along the side as well. So really, we want that to catch your eye. We want the entrance to the park to appear maintained, to make it show, to make it inviting, and have it, bring your attention to it. It's really, I call it visual access, because when you're driving by, it catches your eye and you can say, that's a very special place. It's somewhere where I want to stop. It looks safe. I know I want to go in there and check it out. So that is really on the front area. The park drive, we wanted this to be more than just a driveway to the park, or drive to the parking lot, drop off and leave. You have the ability here, just because of the way things are laid out, for this drive to be more like a parkway, like you're driving on. It could be a very small, even though it's 3/4, or I believe it's a half a mile through there from one end to the end, it could be a small little Baltimore Washington Parkway or Blue Ridge Parkway, that kind of drive. Now I know I'm stretching now, but we could add the treatments so that it appears like that, and it's not a road with a line through it and you go to the parking lot. We want to add the landscaping. We want to add those things, and we want it to transition. And that's the transition point to those other spaces that go into the woods. So we want it to be developed more of a parkway, instead of just a little road. Even though it's small, I know it's not, a couple 100 miles there, but it's small. And I really think it has that ability to be that type of space. We want to make sure we're allowing for everybody to get to the park, whether it's by walking, driving, busing, and we've incorporated a bus stop, which is right here. So essentially the bus would come in on the parkway, drive in here, pick up, drop off, loop through the parking lot, and continue in its way. It's not that much further than the bus stop on the road. It brings people into the park. You see it. You see how inviting it is. It also adds to that safety factor when you have buses coming in. People are there. You see it. There's a lot of good reasons to do that, and to make sure that's in. Certainly, it's totally different than having the bus loop through the park. But at least in this core area where you're going to have the high activity areas, that's just another means for allowing people to get to the park, but also from a safety standpoint, it's something worth considering. Through those special areas that Kelsey talked about, the wetlands, as I said, we want to celebrate those areas, incorporate some wetland boardwalks, and this is where we'd have our environmental education and cultural education exhibits to highlight those things that happen in that area. We've got lots of hiking trails, but more importantly, trails that can accommodate everyone. We have different types of surfaces, different types of abilities. We've got soft surface trails, hard surface trails. Around the perimeter of our core area here, this trail here would be hard surface trail. It's easy, everyone can get there. It serves as an accessible route to all of the proposed facilities. As we go off of those trails, we can have some softer surface trails. Again, remember, I keep saying about transitioning into the woodlands. We go from the hard surface trails to the softer surface trails. And then within the woodlands, we're keeping it primarily to earthen trails. We also have the BMX trails, which gives you another experience. We have one area that we're designating as a BMX multi-use trail, and that's really just to connect the existing BMX to the neighborhoods and allow a small loop within the park. It's not really going to be a, the park's not big enough and there's not enough grade separations and changes in elevations for this to be a destination BMX, trail circuit. But there is the opportunity to provide a small loop trail that would work in conjunction with the BMX area. A dog park that is located down here at the front entrance, close proximity to number 16, which is the maintenance facility. Again, we're setting them off of that parkway that you can see the entrance, but they're not really impeding right on the views. And again, it's one of those transitional spaces. We're not just putting up a fence and putting grass down and wait for it to go away and then next year reseed it. And then we're developing it within the woodlands and having all those comfort features that go with it. We have a number of pavilions that are located throughout the park. There's one here in the teen area. There's one in the senior area. There's a few on the back area, and they're gathering pavilions. But we want these not to be pavilions off of the shelf, not out of the catalog. Custom pavilions that really promote uses by different groups. There's a big trend now in looking at teenagers, particularly young girls, and how they recreate. There is not a lot of space for them. They're probably one of the most underserved in the park and rec industry. There's a stat that I just read that for every boys over the age of 8 use parks 4 times as much as girls. So it's one of my missions to change that. And recently there was an article I read from City Lab newspaper. I'm going to read this because it really sums it up. Teen girls need better public spaces to hang out. Basketball courts, skate parks, and playgrounds overlook an important demographic, teenage girls. A design movement is trying to fix that. I just read that, but what do teen girls want? Many say they want hangout spots with cozy round tables and art or games that foster interaction, not competition. They want gyms and roller rinks and skate parks where they can try and fail without judgment or catcalls. They want to listen to music outdoors without having to pay for a festival ticket. Making space for girls means rethinking which age groups need to swing and climb, how to encourage physical activity. So there's a lot of research going on in that, and we want to, you can see these spaces, the seating, they're facing each other, the colors, they want to listen to music, they want to do all those things. So we want to look at trying to be very inclusive, but look at specific needs. And that was one thing that really shined out and came across with our advisory committee. They wanted to, and they challenged us and they educated us. I learned a lot from that group myself. This was a very inclusive group made up of a lot of different people, as Latiana said, with different perspectives and very diverse thinkers. And it really led me to do some research and to say, we have to really design for everybody and think about those who are not really being served. So that's the kind of thing we wanted to look at. Obviously, nature play, and again, this is one of those transitional spaces. You can see the stone, the trees that were fell, and transition into that wooded the forest. Constructed wetlands. Not going to get into number 21. We obviously have to have stormwater management here. Right now, the site does not have any. even for the existing campus that was there. So anything we build, we'd have to make sure we're addressing the stormwater runoff. There is an open area that was an existing landfill. And as I said before, we can't get into, we're short on time here, couldn't get into all of the analysis, but this area, as Kelsey pointed out, is open. It was a former dump site. There was a phase 1 study done, and it was recommended that that area be cleaned up and hauled away. So if we're going to be digging it out, if we're going to do those types of things and clean it up, why don't we make it into something? So it's also coincidentally located where we can capture all the runoff. So we're making it a water feature. It's going to be a retention pond, not a detention pond. So it will hold water. It'll provide an opportunity for us to develop a pond, possibly have add some fishing to the site. Obviously that would take some more stewardship and maintenance, but the opportunity is there to make it a constructed wetland and a retention pond, similar to what you're seeing it here. So again, it's another feature already located in an area that has previously been disturbed. And it makes a lot of sense because we can capture all of the runoff from the interior developed area into the parkway and then take that into that pond. Within the developed core area is the central gathering green. That, as I said, is about 3 acres, just open space to get, again, add another space. So we're layering all of these spaces to create as many different experiences for as many different residents of Delco as we can. And you can see the different spaces. Even for the kids, some activity mounts. Now this serves as just the playful area, but it also serves to buffer, Sproul Road and the noise and the things there, and try and revegetate. So those spaces are located on the outside. It would buffer the play area and that central core area from the shared use space and from the road. So we're trying to incorporate things in there that make sense with the design overall. We've shown a community building because within that space, we would need restrooms to serve both sides of the park. So this is the Audubon building, full disclosure. It's just an idea of what it could look like. It could be very contemporary. It could be, that all needs to be determined. The point I'm trying to make is that we need some sort of a building in there for restrooms. So if you're going to make what other functions, so that all yet still needs to be worked out and designed, but it makes sense to look at it that way and have it be a focal point and another feature in the design and in that central core area. And one of the things that ironically just kind of came up as we were looking at different spaces and talking about how different groups recreate was this gathering pavilion. This is a pavilion in a pretty famous park in New York designed by Frank, oh my God, Frederick Law Olmsted. I almost said the wrong one. And I'm a landscape architect, not an architect. So you know that pavilion, that it's called the Children's Pavilion. And what's unique about that pavilion, and I'm not saying we're trying to replicate that here, we're trying to recreate the elements and the functions of it, because it serves as the high point of the park, but it has these different levels. So you could have this space where you have lots of different groups recreating in one space, and that's the congregating, that's the highlight of the park with the different levels. That area is located right here, and it has a nice strong access to the lawn and the other community building. Conceptually, you can see there's tons of space around here for people, so it can accommodate a lot of different uses, a lot of different people, and a lot of different things without people being on top of each other. So you could have multiple groups having different events within that space. The other thing that jumped out to us was how some groups did not really feel comfortable in the outdoors, and some people didn't want, and girls in particular is another group. But how could we make it more inviting for for people and introduce them to nature. And one of the things that we came up with the advisory committee is to have this this small little catwalk, canopy trail that would connect to the pavilion, the gathering pavilion, but allow you to explore nature and get to the edge. Be in that transition space, you know, for a little while, and then who knows, maybe next time you come, you'll go a little further into the park. So using that not just as a gathering place, but also introduction to nature. So you can see that this is that walkway that goes around the parkway. So you would be able to ride your bike from shared use paths, come around here, take a little side path, go up and around through there, come back down, continue on your way. It's a nice little rest stop. So that gathering pavilion with restrooms is serving a lot of different uses for a lot of different people and a lot of different events. We're not continuing this throughout the forest. We're putting it on the edge, and we're incorporating new landscaping in, again, as another transition into the woods. So you can see what that might look like, but the idea is really just to kind of get you through that area. And there's a lot more there, but we want to make sure we have some time here for some feedback from you guys. So this is really what we're trying to do, is create a park for everyone and try to be as inclusive and make sure we have lots of different experiences for everyone. We know we've gotten a lot of comments online, or I think before the meeting started, we had almost 40. So please continue to provide comments, because that's really going to help us shape the design and finalizing it. We're not final yet. This is our preliminary concept, and we're here to get the feedback from everybody to make sure we can include those considerations as we go along towards finalizing. So as Gina said, we're going to have another survey. That'll be another means for people to comment on the design and tell us what they think to help us finish. The naming contest is going to be worked out. And then hopefully with all the comments, we can summarize them and incorporating them into finishing design. We also have a scorecard. If you didn't get one, if you could please make sure you put your comments down. If it's easier, and it is easier for me if you use the QR code, because I will not have to translate all these pieces of paper. But you do as you want. You do you, and I'll have to do me. So we've just put together a few of the typical questions that people might be thinking about, but I'm going to turn it over to Ann Hutchinson now to kind of allow you guys to give some input. But again, please use whichever method you're comfortable with to share your thoughts and ideas.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to come out this evening, even in the rain. That will clear up soon. In addition to the scorecard, you can speak. We are monitoring the chat on the YouTube channel as well. We can't invite those people who are virtual to speak, but I will note a few of the comments they've made. If you are here in person and would like to make a comment, we welcome that. I think I'll sort of call you by sections to step up, and we're asking if you're here representing a larger organization, you can speak for, as long as 4 or 5 minutes if you need to. And if you're an individual, we ask that you keep your comments to under 3 minutes. We're not going to get into a discussion. We're going to hear what you have to say. If there are some facts we weren't clear enough about, we will sort of note those. So if you're on the farthest half of the room and you would like to speak, could you raise your hand? So there are 3 of you. If you could line up near the podium and one at a time, state your name and the municipality you live in Delaware County. Thanks.
Testing, 1, 2, testing. My name is Jim Kane, 63 Lowndes Lane, Springfield. Former county employee, was here while this was being processed. What a wonderful job. Just tremendous job. 3 questions I have. Number 1, has a budget started to be created for the maintenance of the facility? Has that been thought about? I'm not asking for an answer. I'm just saying, has that been thought about? What are the security provisions that have been discussed? Have you started to talk about cameras or, you know, are there going to be park police available? What is that going to do? And third, electronically, will there be security cameras available so that things can be done? I've lived in Delaware County all my life. We want to make sure that it stays very nice the way you guys have designed it. Again, congratulations to the committee and to everybody on council and to my 2 friends on council. So.
Hi, my name is Michael Kitt from Newtown Square. I had nothing to say, but after watching this, a thought came to mind. I have been an amateur observer for many years, and I was just curious if there is going to be, well, 2 things. One, a possibility for a spot to go after dark with observing equipment to set up a telescope and be out there, you know, possibly 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning without it being a problem. And in line with that, what kind of lighting is there going to be? Is there going to be Dark Sky Association approved downward lighting as opposed to light polluting lighting? Just something to think about for, you know, when you're kicking your plans around. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Stacy Olkowski. I represent the Delco Skate Park Coalition. I'd like to thank all of the planners here who were so thoughtful in creating a space that I think is going to be really well used by the community, but also preserving of all of the amazing green space that's back there. As a proponent of public, inclusive, adaptive, ADA accessible, all wheels recreation, I'm extremely happy to see the inclusion of a skate park, especially considering the really rich BMX history that is part of that Don Guanella property. And I just want to say that we are happy to help with any aspect of the park's further development and lend any of our expertise that we can to what you guys have proposed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Yep.
My name is Michelle Alvarez from Haverford Township. I happen to be the chairman of the Parks Board in Haverford Township. 2 things, and it was touched upon lightly, is the ADA accessibility. And I understand some of the paths are already being considered, but the whole park and its access should be considered for ADA accessibility, including like these pavilions and these raised boardwalk areas and so forth. And the second thing is I too agree, excuse me, that, that we should have low level lighting on the pathways, but I'm sorry, but allow us to come into the park at night to observe the sky. And will there be, you know, will the gates be closed or open? Thank you.
Anyone else, raise your hand if you have a comment. I think there are 5 hands up. You can all sort of line up there.
Chip Stracklini, Marple Newtown Soccer Association. I noticed that 9% of the survey resulted in sport activity, and it seems like that was unfortunately ignored in your proposed plan. Would really like you to consider soccer fields. Marple Newtown Soccer has 1,000 kids that are playing in pretty much mud fields throughout the season because our fields are overused in Marple and Newtown Township. So would really like consideration for at least one, possibly two soccer fields, perhaps where the dog park is, since that's the size of a soccer field. That would be a great spot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Ted Ullman. I live in Marple Township, and I came in kind of late, so I don't know if there was a graphic up there that maybe kind of said, this is where the high quality forests are right now, and this is where degraded forests were. I didn't see that. But just from my own kind of like observation, it seems to me like walking around, looking at the trees and the underbrush and things like that, it seems to me like the area that is currently designated as the BMX trail, which is of course where the BMX trail is, the trees look really good there. And I'm thinking that if the BMX trail could be moved over closer to the Blue Route, then it would be like a really small change as far as the location is concerned. But I don't really think that being really close to the Blue Route is going to be a great spot for the nature lovers anyhow. So I'd like to see other things, or if it's possible, I'd like to see the BMX area moved over closer to the Blue Route so that the current BMX area can get back its health again. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, please state your name and community you live in.
My name is Joe Leach. I'm a Media Borough resident, and I'm also a cyclist when I'm being very brave. This wonderful park is going to be a green island that currently is not very bike friendly. Okay, and I strongly recommend that the planners here consider making it a priority within a to be determined radius of this park, so that families can take their children on bike trips and ride to the park. And when they get there, find adequate bike racks and secure facilities to enjoy the park that way. Okay, the place it's too great an opportunity to ignore the safety issues of riding on the streets these days, especially the kind of streets that are on the perimeter of the park. Thank you.
Hi, I'm James Bergman. I live in Springfield Township. I'm also a member of Bike Delaware County, which is part of the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. I'd like to echo what Joe said just now about making sure that the streets around the area have adequate bike facilities. But I also do want to thank the planners of the park for really considering the many different ways that people can get to the park without driving. I think that's I like the fact that there are the bike lanes on Reed Road, as well as the shared use trail on Sproul Road. And I look forward to seeing how it will be connecting to Smedley and how it will be connecting to the Darby Creek Trail. I definitely look forward to that. Thank you all very much.
Mario Cimbino, Morton Borough. I've been hiking the site since I was in high school at O'Hara in the early 90s. Don't tell the Archdiocese, they might take my diploma away. And I've been involved in preservation efforts going back to 2015 when the preservation crisis first really ramped up with the Cardinal Crossing proposal on Goodman. Three things jumped out at me, and there's a lot of us that are very concerned about overdevelopment of what's already an existing ecological gem. One is an existing situation that really needs to be remediated, and hopefully as much of the ecologically viable parts of the organic trail system that's been there for years can be retained and built into the new trail system, but there are sections of trail on steep slopes that are just causing a horrendous sedimentation problem into the high quality Whetstone Run, one of the most high quality streams in the county that should be a formal part of the land remediation project. Secondly, there's and will be a lot of concern for anything that reeks of possible overdevelopment. And I would just caution to, I mean, I think this is a very thoughtful plan as it is now. To whatever extent the paved and especially parking areas for motor vehicles be pushed within the existing development perimeter, I think that's mostly happening now, but it looks like there might be a couple areas that are getting toward the edge of that to, look at really making sure that's minimized as much as possible. And then lastly, I want to suggest a slightly different analogy, because I think I understand the Blue Ridge Park analogy and like Merritt Parkway and Palisades Parkway. But for people not familiar with these motorway parkways where there is a tree canopy around them, I might suggest a slightly different analogy with the road system in Central Park, which of course is the early Frederick Law Olmsted project, where roads are grade separated and, there may be traffic, there is traffic coming through Manhattan, but you can't see it because it's grade separated and it really doesn't impede on the natural features. So to the extent we might be able to look at that as a model for the necessary, particularly motorized access, I think that could be helpful. So thank you for your time. So far, it looks like a great start to a great plan for a great park. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Joe Finio from Marple Township, specifically Lawrence Park, Broomall. First thing I'd like to say is thank you to County Council for this great achievement. It really proved, especially Lane Schaefer, it really proved that people of all different thought processes in the community can come together to do this. And I was part of a group originally that we were crawling around that forest before and fighting developers, and so I have a real appreciation. I like a lot of what I'm seeing. I like the trails. I like the idea of the community center and so many other things that I wrote down. And if I keep going, you'll throw me out. I like the idea of historical cultural education. The Gathering Pavilion is a decent idea. There are a couple of things that I have thoughts about, though, and respectfully to Andy, I don't know what I really feel that this park, as it is for everyone, there shouldn't be any particular area for any one group, regardless. And I like the idea of the seating being moved a certain way to accommodate certain likes and things like that. Unless there is space in this community center that can be rented out for private meetings, for people that need to have a particular privacy, then I say fine. But the park really should be open without any designation for everyone. I don't know if you agree with that. That's the way I feel. I don't agree at all in any way, shape, or form with the idea of a bus. That loop, if there is bus service up there already, then that's fine. If there were no bus service, I say fine. The idea of us crawling around those woods for 8 years and trying to get this property preserved was to keep it as natural as possible. And continual bus service causes noise, additional pollution, and I don't feel it's necessary. As far as the catwalk is concerned, I understand what Andy was saying about that. It's a nice idea, kind of cool, different, but I don't think it's needed. Needed is the word. And I think the money could be used for something else to develop an area, maybe present other facilities on another part of the park. What do you call it, like for restrooms? That's basically it. We could use the money for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to make a comment? Seeing none, I'll read a couple of the comments that people have sent in through the chat. There's a note that neighbors from the Stratford Drive area have been working with Marple Township and State Representative Amara at the 320 and Old Marple Road intersection to add a left turn signal and make that area safer. Another comment, thoughtful design, but the BMX course should be saved and not destroyed. I think it's important to clarify. There were several email comments to this effect as well. We are not suggesting that the BMX trail should be destroyed. Specifically, we're recommending that it be saved. Someone asked if the pavilions could be reserved for group events. Another person noticed, wanted to acknowledge concerns about traffic at the 320 and Old Marple intersection and suggested a traffic study. Another comment, great presentation. Someone has asked, would there be sports fields for the children of Marple to use, like the Marple Newtown Soccer Association? Someone else noted the plan looks fabulous. Any chance for a splash pad? Someone else commented, I'd like another review of the plan for sports fields. There's a need for fields for many sports in the locality, with a balance of keeping the natural area. Someone asked what amenities will be provided for senior citizens. For instance, a quiet walking track, bocce, shuffleboard, etc. Someone said, why is there so much development? This doesn't seem green to me. Why not keep the BMX trail and add walking trails? Someone said, what is the timeline of completion once everything is decided upon? I'd mentioned earlier, there were comments about retaining the BMX courts. Someone commented, there are great ideas to make this inclusive. Thank you for addressing the needs of my Girl Scouts. And make sure to ensure the waterways are protected, especially from erosion, such as from BMX trails. Someone else said disc golf. And I would echo sentiments from the MNSA representative regarding sports fields. Someone else said, why does everyone want to tame nature? How about instead of destroying nature to indulge your hobby, bike somewhere else? We have not had time to synthesize all the email comments, which are largely very positive, but they're long because when people emailed, they wrote several paragraphs. And I think now we're up to over 60 comments. So we will find another way to acknowledge those. And they were written in at various times throughout the last few days. Thanks. The question in the, or comment in the front row?
Started the tree commission in Marple, part of the Crum Creek Neighbors, Marple Green Space, etc. One of the things that has been in the works over several years during this process was that the getting out of Crum Creek Road onto Sproul Road has always been a problem. Even our commissioners takes the side road on Jamestown. So taking a left-hand turn there is one step away from disaster. There was plans to on Good, I think it was Goodman's plan to cut across the corner there. There may be some wetland issues and so forth. But I think that's another issue, whether it's bicycles or traffic or even people walking to there from that Jamestown area. Thank you.
And take one or two more.
Hi, my name is Mary Mallory. I live in Swarthmore right now, but I lived in Marple Township most of my life. When I heard Rick mention about making a left-hand turn on the Crum Creek, I lived on a road, Crum Creek Road, since I was 4.5 until I was really old. And the first words I learned from my mother were, "Mary, please don't talk to me when I'm trying to make a left-hand turn." I love the idea of bus accessibility. I hate the idea of bus accessibility. Buses do access the industrial center. Look at a map, guys. Bus accessibility should not make it worse. It should make it easier. Also, so that needs to be addressed. Also, there was no way to not give the bike paths, the motorized bike paths, to those who've been using it. Moving it would be a lot more meetings. Acknowledging that, let's do our best to preserve what's really there, because for any of us who have spent any time sneaking around there, my God, we were breaking the law. There's so many beautiful little areas right along Reed Road. You can walk along Reed Road right where the entrance, the main entrance to the industrial center is. There's a waterfall. Okay, it's 4 feet and 3 feet and 2 feet, but hey, it's a waterfall. Are you going to widen the road there to put in a bus stop, or use what you have? Please take a look at what's available now, infrastructure, and pave the minimum and plant the maximum. Oh, that's kind of clever. Thank you.
Thank you for all the comments, because obviously I went way too fast, because there were some very good comments of things that I didn't address. For example, the senior area and the comments that came in. That area is intended to have those facilities, bocce, all of those facilities that work together. Similarly, the teen area, that's, in close proximity to the community building, whether that's environmental education, whatever that building is, that would have a skate park and things like that that would go along with that. So I didn't get into all those details, but I think if you can, look at the plan, you'll see it. But we wanted to make sure we heard from you guys, and definitely you guys did pick up on everything that obviously I didn't cover. And we heard some common themes there. So those are some things that we'll definitely have to look at, in particular, the busing issue. But there's also some benefits to that. So those will have to be some hard decisions. And that's why we have an advisory committee that represents everybody, and we'll take it back to them, and we'll discuss those common themes that we heard, as well as take into consideration everything we heard online. And we'll try and put out another plan that hopefully addresses everyone's needs. So again, hopefully you've submitted your comments, but if not, please do so, and thank everyone. Thank you guys for coming out.